Here in America, work is in trouble. We've offshored our manufacturing, sent away good jobs, and lost so much ability to make things. American Giant is a company that's pushing back against this tide. They make high-quality clothing, sweatshirts, jeans, dresses, jackets, and so much more, right here in the USA. Visit American-Giant.com and get 20% off your first order when you use code STAPLE20 at checkout. That's 20% off your first order at American-Giant.com, promo code STAPLE20.
You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. With Indeed sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach the people you want faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Don't wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/kidsandfamily. Just go to Indeed.com/kidsandfamily right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.
Now, the Hunt Palmer Show.
Yes! I feel like I've been waiting for this my entire life.
You're listening to the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Jolly good fun. Jolly good.
Locking down the middle of the day.
America's favorite daytime fun show.
Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio. This is Hunt Palmer.
Welcome in. Hunt Palmer coming to you from the Mercedes-Benz at Baton Rouge studio downtown in the capital city on this Tuesday. Hope your work week's off to a good start. Appreciate you hanging out with us here on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Busy Tuesday as usual. Our normal Tuesday guest will be along. That's Glen West coming up in 30 minutes. Sharif Ishak at the bottom of hour number 2. I spent 3 hours up at LSU today. We watched practice for 2 hours and then had player interviews afterward, and really got some good stuff from a player interview perspective. I've got a piece coming up on some of the things that Jack Pyburn told us later on this afternoon. I thought he was great. We talked to Mansour Delane. We'll hear from him in hour number 2 today. Also got a chance to talk to Barry and Brown, got a chance to talk to Bauer Sharp. So a lot of that will be coming up on sound on this show and on AFR, and certainly over at LouisianaSports.net via written form. But so lots of LSU football is what I'm trying to get to here. We'll talk about that a good bit. LSU and UNO tonight from the box at 6:30. So certainly talk about that. Sharif will be along to talk about all things Saints. I want to talk about one thing specifically with Sharif in the second hour on the Saints. They've restructured Cam Jordan's deal. They've restructured Tyrann Mathieu's deal. You feel like Demario Davis is maybe in his last contract at Saints. I want to talk about what those three guys have to offer the 2025 Saints, so we'll do that in hour number 2 as well. Got Jacob Beck and Cassie Spazzali back there on the ones and twos. Let's get this thing started the way we start every day with our Genesis opening drive.
It's time for Hunt's Opening Drive, presented by Genesis of Baton Rouge.
So I was out at practice today, and we got a chance to see more. I feel like I'm pretty open with y'all when we have limited practice access. When they tell us we can go to practice for 20 minutes, I'll be very honest with you. Trying to get a segment out of that here and a practice report on LouisianaSports.net is not all that easy. Like, it's not. I wish I was super perceptive or I don't know. It's just there's not a lot going on in 20 minutes. When we can watch for 2 hours, I can get you some information. And so I got 2 hours worth of information today, and we'll kind of get into it. And I want to start with the LSU offense today. We're seeing a lot of the same front for LSU on the offensive line. Tyree Adams and Weston Davis at the tackles. Tyree Adams at left, Weston Davis at right. You're seeing a lot of Paul Mabenga at guard. You're seeing a lot of DJ Chester at center. And you're seeing a lot of Bo Bordelon at right guard. That's generally speaking what we've seen a lot of. Now, Cohen Eccles has played some right guard. He did today. Cohen Eccles has played some left tackle with the twos. Braylon Moore has subbed in at center. There are some moving pieces, but a lot of the time that we have seen has been from left to right. Tyree Adams, Paul Mabenga, DJ Chester, then Bo Bordelon or Cohen Eccles and then Weston Davis. That's a lot of what we've seen. And to me, it's a little bit surprising to have seen DJ Chester working at center as much as we have seen him at center. We all just kind of assumed Braylon Moore would plug right in, and he's more so running with the twos. He spent some time with the ones today, more so with the twos. Now, Brian Kelly told us back 2 weeks ago, like, don't look too much at the rotations. We're going to cycle a lot of guys in there. But I'm just telling you, I've been to 3 practices now. Our staff has been to 4 practices now, and you're not seeing that much of a shuffle at offensive line. Some, not a lot. So that is interesting. You move back a level to the quarterback spot, and I thought Garrett Nussmeier today was excellent. I thought he was really, really good. Commanded the offense, completed a lot of short passes. His favorite target today in the 7-on-7 and the 11-on-11 that we saw was Trey'Dez Green. I saw Trey'Dez Green make an incredible catch down the left sideline, down near the end zone. Probably would have been a touchdown. It was 125 yards away from me, so I couldn't tell for sure. But it looked like it was in the end zone, up over the top of a defender. It was a really nice play. He also won a one-on-one route on a crossing route that Nussmeier hit him in stride on. Those two had a really nice synergy today. They hit each other on a little 1st and 10 out route into the right flat that would have gone for 10 or 12 yards and very likely a first down. I like the way that Garrett Nussmeier was locked in with Trey'Dez Green. Also saw some good things from some of the guys on the outside. When they go with the ones, you're always seeing Chris Hilton. You're always seeing Aaron Anderson. And then you're seeing a smattering of someone else at the third slot. Today, Destin Hill was out there early and often. I found that very interesting. There were some skeptics in the media that were going, Bryce Brown, Ed Nacar's coach is here. Maybe you're giving Destin Hill a look there. It was a little bit tongue-in-cheek. But Destin Hill was a really talented high school player. He just hasn't really played football over the last 4 years. But he was out there a little bit. You saw Nick Anderson come in later in the practice and run a little bit with the ones. Xavion Thomas has run a little bit with the ones as well. I thought, let me see, make sure my note is correct here. I thought, so Chris Hilton ran a really good slant route and beat Ashton Stamps over the middle. I liked that play a ton. And then there was one more that I liked offensively. Oh, Bauer Sharp ran a great double move route and got open for a touchdown catch against Austin Osbury, the safety, and I really liked that play as well. So you pair that with Trey'Dez Green and Bauer Sharp, and those two were out there a ton at the same time when they were going 11-on-11 and then 11-on-0, which was like the dry period. You're seeing a lot of LSU in 12 personnel, 1 back in the backfield, 2 tight ends. I don't know how much they're going to run that. You don't have a ton of depth at tight end. You do have Donovan Green, and you're going to have J.D. LaFleur, so you're adding to that in with Green's here, and then you're going to add to it with LaFleur here in the summer. But they were running a lot of 12 personnel, and we talked about Bauer Sharp today. He likes being on the field with Trey'Dez Green. He likes blocking a little bit, and he does like being out in space. And I thought he made some really nice plays out there. Chris Hilton had a great catch that we saw earlier today as well. I once again am encouraged by seeing him. But at this point, like, the story with Chris Hilton is not like, what can he do? We know what he can do. We know he's super fast. We know he can make plays down the field. We know he's improved as a route runner since he got here 4 years ago. But we don't know if he's going to be on the field. And that's not his fault. But at this point, it would be disingenuous for me not to bring that up when we talk about Chris Hilton on the practice field. I'm pulling for the guy. I believe in the guy. I think he's going to have a huge year. But you haven't seen that the first 4 years because of injury. The name I did not mention there, and that was a mistake I was thinking about in my head, Barry Brown was also out there with the ones at times, and that's a guy who we talked to today in media breakout sessions. I asked him who the fastest 3 wide receivers were on the team. He said him first, then Chris Hilton, and then he went with Xavier Thomas. Now, I feel like he's got to give a hat tip to Jelani Watkins at some point. The guy runs track and might run in the Olympics one day, and I think is probably pretty clearly the fastest guy on the team. But Jelani's got some track obligations, and maybe he hasn't gotten to know him as well because Barry Brown just got here. But I feel like the LSU passing game today was very good. There was one interception on a ball that was intended for Chris Hilton over the middle. It got tipped twice, and it was picked off by Austin Osbury. But overall, watching the 7-on-7, watch the 11-on-11, I came away very impressed with LSU's wide receivers and the quarterback. I thought he hit some deep balls, looked really good doing that. I thought he was great working around the line of scrimmage. And that's what you would expect from Garrett Nussmeier. You would expect him to be in complete control. I've mentioned this a few times over the years with Nussmeier, and to me, it still rings true. I have vivid memories of watching a freshman Garrett Nussmeier in his first spring, just running all over the field like a 5-year-old, like dapping everybody on the head, screaming, yelling, waving his arms, just like absolute endless energy from this guy. And there's still a little bit of that in there. He made a great touchdown throw today and ran and did a jumping back tap with Destin Hill. You see some of that in him. But more so, it's a guy that's just kind of in control and in command. He's verbal, he's vocal, but he's a little bit more subdued than the guy that we saw going nuts. But at no point has he been more efficient than he is right now. And I think that what has stood out to me in a little bit of the 11-on-11 and the 7-on-7 that we've gotten to watch is that he's really good. Now, the counterpoint to that, and the other thing we have to consider when you're talking about Garrett Nussmeier is last year, he was given a lot of time to throw the ball by some NFL offensive linemen. And we don't know that piece to the equation yet. Garrett's never going to be an elite mobility guy. He's a good athlete. He's never going to be what Jaden Daniels is back there. And I don't think he's as mobile and aware and competent in the pocket with his movements as Joe Burrow was. Now, those are Heisman Trophy winners. I get it. But is he going to be under a little bit more pressure this year? Is he going to have to speed up that mental clock a little bit more this year? Now, he was as fast as anybody in the country, and there's a metric for this. This is not just me saying this. There's actual metrics on how quickly quarterbacks get the ball out of their hand, and Garrett Nussmeier ranked among the best in college football in getting the ball out of his hand last year. So that's already a strength of his game, but it's going to have to continue to be that, and it's going to have to get even better because I think there are going to be times where this LSU offense struggles to keep him as upright as the one did last year. And that's the piece that we don't get any look at in the spring because he's got a no contact on and they're not going to hit him. And there were multiple plays today where he probably made a throw down the field that he would not have been allowed to make because he probably would have been sacked or hit really hard today. But he wasn't because he's got the no contact on. And that's the piece that you have to kind of consider as you're watching practice and you're charting things and you're looking at the plays that the offense is making. You also have to consider, hey, this is a guy that can't get hit, and you're a little bit concerned about the offensive line. If Will Campbell and Emory Jones and Miles Frazier and Garrett Dellinger were coming back, and you added Braylon Moore to this mix, and I wouldn't really consider that part of the thing because I go, well, he's going to get good pass protection all year, which he did last year. But that's a question mark. Not a massive concern, not a huge red flag, just something we'll have to evaluate when the actual lights come on in Clemson, South Carolina, coming up on Labor Day weekend. But today, I thought a really nice day for LSU's passing game. But I'll say this, and this is coming from someone who has been very, very critical of the LSU defensive backs in fall camp the last 2 years. To the point where it was on Instagram, got all the clicks and all that kind of stuff. Like, I'm well aware of the things that I said. And I say that today the LSU passing game had a good day. I think I'm seeing some things from the DBs that I like in this spring, and we're going to talk about that a little bit in hour number 2. Got a chance to visit with Mansour Delane earlier today, and we've got some sound that we'll play from him, specifically about DJ Pickett and what he's seen from the young freshman. So we'll get to a little bit of that as we move along. That's our Genesis opening drive here on this Tuesday. Do want to remind you, sports trivia tonight at Pizza by Roan's on Perkins. If you're looking to hang out, we might have some NCAA basketball, the tournament on the TVs. They got great pizza there. They got wings, fantastic drink selection, including cold beers. You can win some gift cards to Pizza by Roan and play some sports trivia today. We took last week off because I had a brand new kid that was 2 days old, so we decided going to take last week off. We're back in action tonight at 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock, Pizza by Roan's on Perkins. Come on out and win some gift cards, play some sports trivia at Pizza by Roan's. When we come back, I wanted to do this yesterday. I didn't have time. I watched a ton of SEC baseball over the weekend with a infant at the house that didn't allow us to leave very much. And I've got some takes. We're not going to do power rankings. That'll be tomorrow. But I've got some things that I saw over the weekend watching more SEC baseball than you probably did as the listener, which is to be expected. But I got some takes. We'll get to those next.
The Hunt Palmer Show. You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
All right. Just some general thoughts on SEC baseball. I took y'all's temperature on this 2 years ago when LSU was preseason number 1 with the 23 team that we all know how that story ended. And I feel like the feedback that I get via Twitter, and this could be wrong, tell me in the Bayou Ford chat if it is wrong. I feel like y'all are a little bit more eager to wade into the SEC baseball waters when the basketball team is doing what it did 2 years ago and did what it did this year. I'm fully aware sitting here that there are not a lot of you listening that are going to turn on the Alabama-Texas A&M baseball game on a Saturday afternoon. I don't think that's something that I think you're going to turn on that football game, and I think you're more likely to watch a little bit of the basketball game. Baseball, you got to go find it on the stream. I feel like in that sense that I'm watching more than you, when in football I think I'm watching less than you, honestly, because of my work obligations. But in baseball, I feel like I can actually share some information that you might not know because you may have a sense of what's happened over the weekend, but I'm watching more than most of the listenership at this point. So just some big picture things that I caught up over the weekend. Tennessee swept Florida in Knoxville, and it looks a little bit worse than it probably was. At the same time, Tennessee was much better than Florida. Here's what I mean by that. The Saturday game was a run rule. Tennessee won 10-0. And you look at that and you go, well, that's just a beatdown. And it is. I mean, 10-0. But it was 1-0 at the 7th inning stretch. Tennessee scored 9 runs in the bottom of the 7th, including a walk-off 3-run homer to make it 10-0. So that game, that's a competitive game. It's 1-0 in the bottom of the 7th. But Tennessee goes nuts offensively. I thought that the two Liams, Doyle and Peterson, competed. I thought the offenses were ready for them. I thought they drove pitch counts up and you had to get into the bullpen. But Tennessee proved it could pitch because Tennessee held Florida down for the majority of that 3-game set. And that's impressive in that ballpark against a lineup that hits a ton of home runs. So Tennessee's legit, y'all. I don't know what to tell you. I know there aren't a lot of people here that like Tennessee. They're 20-0, and they just swept Florida. It's a good baseball team. Speaking of sweeps, Alabama goes to College Station and wins all 3 games. And I'm listening to Highway to Hoover yesterday. We'll have Joe Healy on Thursday. I'm going to try to have Mark Etheridge on Friday because he's going to go to the LSU-Texas game on Friday as part of this whole tour of the Southeast he's doing. But Joe Healy said this on Highway to Hoover. This is a guy who covers the SEC, who does an incredible job of covering the SEC, but is not quick to be overly critical. He's fair, not quick to be overly critical. He said on the podcast they recorded Sunday evening, Texas A&M stinks. That's what he said. You've heard him on my show for 3 years. Have you ever heard him say that about a team? And I don't know how you could counter that. Texas A&M faced Alabama in its home ballpark, backs against the wall. In 3 games, they got 3 extra base hits. 3 games, 3 extra base hits. Laviolette still hitting under 250. Nobody else in that lineup is picking up any slack. It's a wasteland of offense. They faced Bama's Sunday starter, who hasn't been great this year. Texas A&M did not score a run on Sunday. 2-0, they lose. Now, to A&M's credit, which is minuscule at this point, their 3 starting pitchers did a pretty good job, but they scored no runs on Sunday. It's shocking. What LSU did for the first 15 games last year was shocking. This is even more so because A&M is not beating non-conference teams, and then they got dusted on their home field over the weekend. I'm stunned that Bama went in there and swept them. Stunned. Couple of great rubber games on Sunday. Auburn hits a grand slam in the 8th inning to steal Game 3 of that series against Vanderbilt. By the way, Sam Dutton on Friday for Auburn threw the ball really well against a Vanderbilt team that's not great, but solid. He got into the 7th inning throwing that breaking ball. I watched the highlights of that game, and he looked good. I don't know that I would fully trust him to be an SEC number 1. We've seen a lot of Sam Dutton over the last 3 years, but he pitched the ball great on Friday, and Auburn comes back, gets that grand slam, and wins a crazy rubber game. Speaking of crazy rubber games, Ole Miss wins game 1 against Arkansas, just knocks Zach Root all over the place. Arkansas made a rotation change. Gabe Gackel's been their Friday night guy. They went to Zach Root instead. Ole Miss was a laser show of Root and won that game. Then they come back, and Arkansas beats them, hits back-to-back-to-back homers on Saturday, and I think hit 5 total and won that game. And then Sunday, Ole Miss has the lead and 2 outs in the 9th. They surrender the lead, base hit, then a homer by one of the Eloy brothers, Wahiba in this case, and Arkansas, who was down to their last out, wins the rubber game in Oxford. Couple things. Arkansas is hitting the baseball. They're hitting home runs. They're hitting doubles. Their pitching is generally really good. Arkansas looks pretty good to me right now. And Ole Miss, while that's a gut-wrenching loss on Sunday to lose that game, they played with the number 3 team in the country for 3 days. Kicked their butt on Friday and had them within 1 out on Sunday of winning the series. I think that's fairly encouraging for Ole Miss. Now, you got to go pay it off. They're going to Columbia, Missouri this weekend. Ole Miss is. They need to at least get 2 there. Need 2 bad. But I think fairly encouraging for them. Mississippi State gets swept at Dudy Noble by Texas. We'll talk about Texas a lot later this week because, of course, LSU goes to Austin. But Mississippi State now, you look at what they've done, and they've played some quality teams. South Alabama, Troy in the midweek, go to the Houston tournament, play 2 good opponents. Then you play Tech. They're losing every game. Every time they step up in class, they lose. The only game they won in that Houston tournament was against Rice, who's already fired their coach. So, and that's right, they fired their coach before March. So, like, it's trouble in Starkville right now. They got to figure something out. And for those that aren't aware, Texas and Mississippi State played this weekend. That's LSU's next 2 weekends. You got at Texas, Mississippi State comes to the box. So you got a Texas team that lost the opener of the season and has won 17 in a row. That's who LSU will play on Friday. And then you've got a Mississippi State team that can't get on the winning side of things coming up in the following weekend, and that'll be at the box. Oklahoma and South Carolina. One thing that is abundantly clear about Oklahoma at this point, and LSU will go to Norman here in a few weeks, Kyson Witherspoon is their Friday guy. He is a top 3 Friday guy in the league for me right now. He and Liam Doyle and Liam Peterson are probably my top 3 right now. And then there's a group like right behind them. The Kate Anderson's in that group. I would suggest that Ryan Prager's in that group. But I mean, you look at Friday dudes, and Oklahoma has one. Now they don't have much. Kyson's brother goes on Saturdays and isn't as good. And then Cam Johnson was sick this week. Y'all are well aware of who Cam Johnson is. He was sick all week. They tried to send him out there. He walked the first guy he saw on 4 pitches. He hit the next guy. They took him out. He faced 2 batters, issued 2 free bases. They took him out. He was sick, and so he'll probably pitch again this weekend. But Oklahoma, I don't think, is a great team. They are 17-2. They did go to South Carolina and win the series. However, when I watch them play, I don't see a ton of talent, except for their Friday night pitcher is excellent. So that's absolutely something to look at for Oklahoma. And then some of the teams that I haven't mentioned as much. Vanderbilt, I talked about Auburn. It just doesn't look like the Tim Corbin teams. And I asked Joe Healy that exact question last week before we got into SEC play. Said Vanderbilt, it just doesn't have the dudes they once had. And Joe Healy just looked and was like, yeah, that's correct. And you watch them play Auburn, and that's abundantly clear. Like, they always had a top 20 pick that fronted their rotation. Always. Rocker, Leiter. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. Walker Buehler, and you got David Price going back even further. I mean, there's a ton of Vanderbilt guys, Tyler Beatty, that have been dudes, and they just don't have that. They don't have Dansby Swanson. They don't have Pedro Alvarez. They don't have J.J. Bleday. They've just been a factory of early round picks, And you look at this Vanderbilt team, and it's just not quite there. And so they go to Auburn, and yeah, they could have won that series. But now you look at them, Vanderbilt's 15-5. They played a tougher schedule, but they've already got 5 losses. So, and 2 of them came over the weekend against Auburn, one in heartbreaking fashion. So just not quite what they have been. There's still a ton of baseball to be played. I mentioned this on Friday that like every single weekend you're going to have 5, probably 5 really good matchups, if not 6 or 7. I could argue that there were 7 this past weekend if you take LSU and Missouri out. That technically should be a team toward the top and a team at the bottom. Everything else looks pretty good, and that's generally what you're going to get. I think there are some teams that are going to fade. I could see a case where South Carolina fades. I could see a case where Mississippi State fades. I could see a case where Kentucky fades, quite frankly. They went 1-2 over the weekend in Georgia. So the whole thing fascinates me. It's so different than the regional, super regionals in Omaha because the losses aren't as penal. It's just a long marathon where you just always got to get right back on the horse. LSU finds itself in a really good position right now at 3-0. We'll see what they can do over the next couple of weeks. Keep in mind that LSU's toughest stretch, where they've got Tennessee, they've got Arkansas, and I still put Texas A&M on the road in that conversation today. Maybe a week and a half from now I don't do that, but today I do. Those are 3 in a row. You would like, if you're LSU, to sock away as many victories as possible before you get to that really tough stretch. We'll see if the Tigers can do that. But that's kind of a look around the Southeastern Conference, what we saw over the weekend in SEC baseball play. When we come back, we'll talk to Glen West, talk some football and some baseball with him coming up next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Genesis of Baton Rouge, genesisofbatonrouge.com. Airline at Piku. The odds are, if you're listening to me, you have not set foot on the lot or inside the dealership at Genesis of Baton Rouge. I would highly, highly recommend that you make an effort to get on by. The facility is first class. It's state-of-the-art. It's incredibly clean. It's an incredible staff. It's welcoming. The Wi-Fi is great. It's a good place to sit and get some things done if you want to hang out while your car is being serviced. Got a phenomenal coffee set up with this huge coffee maker that can make them all. They've got great snacks as well, and it's a spot you can hang out. But if you don't have time for that, a lot of people don't love to do it. Well, you can do the valet maintenance if you're a Genesis driver. 3 years, complimentary. They'll come to you, get your car, take it back, service it with the oil change, wiper blades, air filter, whatever the case needs to be done, and drive it right back to you. It's Genesis of Baton Rouge. If you're in the market for a vehicle, you're probably going to spend some time on Airline Highway. That's where a lot of the dealerships are. Make one more stop at Genesis of Baton Rouge, right there, Airline and Piku, across from Women's Hospital. It's Genesis of Baton Rouge. Find them online at genesisofbatonrouge.com.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
Week's off to a good start. Tuesday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. Spent a lot of time up at LSU earlier today watching 2 hours of football practice, doing some player interviews as well. I got a story up on Jack Pyburn, LSU defensive end edge rusher that you can read at louisianasports.net right now. And I got a feeling you may see some quotes from Jack Pyburn from our next guest, Glen West, senior writer over at Go 24/7. He was there chatting with those players as well. Joins us now on the Jim's Firearms Hotline. Glen, how are you?
Beat me to it, Hunt. I got mine up about 2 minutes ago. So
I think let's see when
bunch of quotes from all 4 guys.
Exactly. Ours came up. Yeah, that was about 2 minutes ago. So I think you probably just clipped us there. But it's up. So look, LSU football practice today. We got a chance to watch for a couple hours. Got a chance to see some 11 on 11. I'll leave it kind of open ended. Was there one note in your notebook that stood out more so than some others?
Nothing really deep or in particular. I mean, I thought it was interesting that Cohen Eccles got some run at right guard. I mean, He was pretty much the starting right guard on the first team for the most of this practice today. I thought that the defensive backs held up pretty well for the most part in those 11 on 11 periods in particular. I think that last 11 on 11 period that LSU had, you could make the argument that the defense won. They held the offense in check pretty well there on that one series, but nothing major. I think probably honestly, the biggest thing I took away from the day was just talking to those transfers after practice. I mean, I really liked the demeanor, the mindset, a lot of the things that they had to say. You mentioned Jack Pyburn there. I mean, he was a great guy to talk to there for about 10 minutes. And, you get the sense, though, that this is like a workmanship kind of mentality that a lot of these guys have. And, Pyburn, Monsieur Delane, which we learned today, it's Monsieur, not Mansur. So those guys just have the right kind of way about going things, way about doing things, and I just really liked kind of getting to meet them and know them a little bit more, because obviously those are guys that are going to play huge roles on this defense that you're hoping that can kind of take it a notch up, a couple notches up here in 2025.
It's interesting talking to them because they sound like veterans who have signed in free agency as opposed to freshmen. Like, they sound like guys who know who they are, know what college football's about, want to test themselves against the best, want to fit in. Like, it was a different vibe than what you get from really young players, even though it was the first time we got a chance to talk to them. Do you think that's a positive for the culture? Do you think that can become a challenge? Like, what was your read on it?
I think it's a positive. I mean, look, the last conversation we got a chance to have was with Delane there, and one of the things that we asked him, or I should say you asked him actually, was his favorite aspect of playing cornerback, and he says he likes it when it's 3rd and 4 and he's on the boundary side in a single high coverage with the receiver, just him on man-to-man defense, and knowing that it's all on him to make that play, to get off the field, and that's the kind of mentality that I think LSU really needs with this defense. They need some veterans out there who aren't afraid, to be aggressive and to get off the field. So I think he's somebody that I just kind of getting to talk with him even just for a few minutes today, that is going to not be afraid to make mistakes. And I think having the experience that guys like him and Pyburn have is only going to make this defense better for having gone through what they've gone through as veterans in college football. So and performed at the level that they have. So that to me was just a couple of things that stood out. Just Pyburn talked a lot about how he's not ready, or he's ready to not be the story of being counted out or having to prove people wrong, that kind of thing. Like, he's here to make a difference. He's here to help get this team to where they want to go, which is the college football playoff and competing for a national championship.
If you had asked me 3 weeks ago who's the transfer that's most likely to start, I probably would have said Braylon Moore. And we look out there, and DJ Chester's taking the vast majority of the reps as the first-team center. What have you made of that?
Yeah, very interesting. Like, I think that Chester, it's a credit to him more than anything that he's not given that spot up. And I think it was Wilson Alexander who sat down with Coach Kelly before the spring really started, and Kelly said that Chester was probably going to be playing guard and center. So, like, there's still some time here left in the spring for that to happen, and for more to kind of. But I think it's more on. I think, to me at least, it's more on Chester and the way that he's been able to develop as a player, as opposed to Braylon Moore not being what they thought he was or anything like that. So, we're still very early into this thing. We're 6 practices into a 15-practice spring, and like I said, we saw some changes today on the offensive line with guys like Cohen Eccles going in there at right guard, and so I think there's still a lot of time for this thing to kind of sort out. But if Chester is starting to develop the way that LSU hoped he would maybe last year, that is a really positive sign here early in the spring camp.
Our audience turns over every 15 or 20 minutes, so I'm going to talk about this in 40 minutes from right now. I don't feel bad kind of spoiling it with you here because you were standing right next to me, but can you characterize Monsieur Delane's reaction when we asked him about DJ Pickett and what you thought about that answer?
Yeah, he gave the 5-star plus approval to DJ Pickett. So yeah, look, he's Pickett. I mean, you just watch him with the way that he moves, the way that he's able to. I mean, he had another couple pass breakups today and one-on-ones, which for defensive backs, it's extremely hard to stay with wide receivers in those one-on-one drills and and Pickett early here is showing that he can be a guy that is going to be able to keep up with the best of them. And he wasn't going up against third teamers either. He was neck and neck with Barry and Brown on one rep today, and he's been in one-on-one coverage with Chris Hilton before, so he's the real deal. I mean, he looks the part, and it's just a matter of time before he's in that first team, in my opinion. He's been pretty consistently with the twos when they've gone 11 on 11 or 7 on 7, but I think that's going to change here very quickly if he continues to have the kind of practices that at least we've seen to this point. We've been privy to a couple 20-minute sessions and now the full practice today, but he's looked really, really good in everything that I've seen so far this spring.
Glen West is our guest. You're looking for LSU team coverage, whether it's football, basketball, baseball, whatever the case may be. Glen's all over it there at Go 24/7. Let's talk some baseball now, Glen. LSU gets off on the right foot. I don't know if it was a work of art for every single inning over the weekend, but the sum of the innings was exactly what you're looking for in a sweep. Would you take that as an overwhelming positive, or was there something negative that jumped out to you?
No, nothing supremely negative that I'm overly worried about right now with this team. I mean, the offense has been averaging close to 11 runs a game since they lost that Omaha game, in week 2 of the season. That feels like a light years ago at this point. With the way that the offense has just been swinging the bats with the consistency they've been showing so far. I know probably most people are curious about the pitching staff and just the 20 free passes they had over the 3-game stretch there. I'm not overly worried about that right now. Like, I think you're still figuring out the best situations for guys to pitch in. Sure, you absolutely need Anthony Ianson and Chase Shores to go more than 3 2/3 innings. Like that's not a sustainable method of winning in the SEC when 2 of your starters can't get into the 4th or 5th innings there. But I do think that they have, for every negative you want to throw about the weekend, I think there's a even greater positive, which is guys like Zach Cohen or Zach Cowan and Kason Evans and what he was able to do. I thought, after a really kind of rough outing and a half there, Connor Ware put together back-to-back really good outings out of the bullpen this weekend and gave you some zeros. So Cade Anderson continues to look like a really composed Friday night guy that is going to be able to help you get off to really great starts this weekend. So I think that they have some things still to figure out. Sure, there's some development and some growth that still needs to happen along the staff, but no reason to be overly panicked at this point, in my opinion.
Where are you on Ianson? I think he's been the most hot topic pitcher on the staff. I don't know how your message boards have reacted, but that's certainly where my Twitter feed is. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, look, he's, his fastball is not overly powering. It's not going to get to 95, 96, 97. It's going to kind of hang in that 91 to 93 range. And so if that's going to happen, he's going to need to do 2 things. He's going to need to locate his pitches, and he's going to have a really, really consistent breaking ball to go along with it. And I think his breaking ball has been a little bit up and down, but if you watch it on TV, I mean, that thing just dips. I mean, it gets halfway to the plate and it just dies. And so figuring out where he needs to place that pitch, I believe it's a curveball, just watching it and the way that it moves, but he has a really, really good movement on that. And I think it's just finding some consistency with those secondary pitches, which you could honestly say is the same thing that you need to see out of Chase Shores. And he throws, a little bit harder, but he needs to locate that slider so teams aren't chasing the fastball. So I'm not overly concerned with Ianson. I mean, the guy's still leading the team in strikeouts because he had that 115 marvelous game, 15 strikeout game a couple weeks ago. But I'm still very high on this. And my whole thing is, like, if you're going to think about replacing Ianson, who are you replacing him with? I mean, I don't want to take Cohen out of the bullpen. I don't want to take Evans out of the bullpen. Maybe William Schmidt can get there, but he just really had a struggling kind of one outing over the weekend by issuing the 3 free passes. So you're still waiting for him to kind of get it together and get his career on the right track here, and he's going to be a really great pitcher for LSU. So I'm still not out on Ianson or anything like that. I think he's the guy that LSU is going to roll with for the foreseeable future, at least.
LSU and UNO tonight at 6:30 from the box. LSU travels to Texas for a big-time showdown at Dish Falk Field over the weekend. Looking for coverage. Glen West has got you covered over there at Go 24/7. He's with us on Tuesdays. Thanks, man.
All right. Thanks, Hunt.
Come back and close out hour number 1. We got a lot to do in hour number 2, getting you ready for LSU and UNO as DBU on the way back. Sharif Ishaq on the Saints defense. All that coming up later after we close out hour number 1.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Audio Video Security Solutions, avssla.com is that website. Look, it is outdoor season in Baton Rouge. The weather has been fantastic this week. It's going to be pool season soon. I know a lot of folks love to listen to some LSU baseball out by the pool, maybe watch some baseball outside on an outdoor television. If you're looking to get all of that done in your outdoor area, whether you've got the pool, or maybe you got a pool house, maybe you've got a deck, maybe it's just a back patio where you want to hang out. You can do all of that at Audio Video Security Solutions. They can supply the equipment, televisions, speakers, wiring, and get you all set up, and all of it can be controlled right there at the touch of a button on your phone. It's the way we've got it set up at the Palmer House, and we've just been thrilled with it since they installed it just about a year ago. It's Mitchell Fisher and a team at Audio Video Security Solutions. Find them online at avssla.com. That's avssla.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
Closing up hour 1 here, Tuesday edition of The Hunt Palmer Show. Tonight, sports trivia, 8 o'clock, Pizza by Roan's on Perkins. You're watching some hoops, winning some gift cards, eating some pizza, drinking some cold beers. Wings are available as well. It's a great spot, and we've kind of carved out a new niche over there at Pizza by Roan's. We appreciate them for having us, and appreciate those of you that come out for sports trivia. It's always been a ton of fun. So we'll be out there tonight, 8 o'clock at Pizza by Roan's on Perkins. So I popped out of bed this morning, just fired up to get into the living room, crank up the TV, and get the Cubs season off and running. And then it put me in a really bad mood because the Cubs just stunk it up today, pre-7 a.m. That's even a tougher loss. When you wake up at 4:50 to watch and they get 3 hits and make 2 errors and get punked by the JV squad of the Dodgers. And that's what happened this morning, Beck.
It wasn't the JV squad, Hunt.
It certainly was.
Is Shohei Ohtani in the JV squad?
Yes, he's on the JV squad.
Yoshinobu Yamamoto is on the JV squad?
Half of him was on the JV squad, yes. They pulled him out after 60 pitches.
69.
69 pitches. Nice.
It's early in the season. They're getting stretched out. I mean,
I know exactly what happened, but they're not going to. You get a huge break because you're playing the best team probably ever assembled, quite frankly. And they're without 2 MVPs. Mookie Betts didn't play. Freddie Freeman didn't play. Mookie's sick. I don't know what's going on with Freddie. They didn't play. So 2 of their MVPs sat down, and their ace, who's among the best pitchers in baseball, wasn't allowed to pitch very much. And the Cubs couldn't get a hit.
They got 3 hits.
They didn't get a single hit off the bullpen or walk. They were retired in order. It was like Keller up there trying to hit.
I don't feel good about Matt Shaw playing third base.
Yeah, you're on that. He threw 1 ball away, but you're letting your biases dictate how you're watching the game.
Well, let me say this: he didn't play third base in the minors.
That's true.
And he's playing.
Alex Bregman played third base for like 5 minutes in the minors.
Okay, I think this is a little different.
If you can play shortstop, you can play third base.
All right, we'll see.
Should I wake up and do it again tomorrow?
I wouldn't.
Well, that's unacceptable. I'm going to definitely do it.
Okay. Well, you asked.
The kiddo has got to eat at 6 anyway. Game's at 5:10. You pop up, you watch. But that was so deflating. I was looking at this, I was going, this is such a huge break they're catching here because the Dodgers, 2 guys are down. That's the first thing I saw on Twitter this morning. I saw Jesse Rogers tweet out like, "Oh, they've scratched Freddie Freeman." Well, that's huge. And the Cubs just couldn't even make contact.
Yeah, and guess what happens tomorrow when they play the Dodgers?
I know that Steele pitches for us. Who's going for them?
Roki Sasaki.
He's not that good.
Yeah, he's not that good. Yeah.
The deal is, though, this is what's interesting about this stupid little 2-game series they do in the middle of spring training, which is dumb, by the way. The Dodgers can throw like Blake Snell out of the bullpen if they want, because you don't play again for 3 weeks. There's a give and take with this 2-game series that they're going to play, where you can use your starting pitchers out of the bullpen, and the Cubs and Dodgers, more so than everybody else in Major League Baseball, the first 4 games they play of the season, they can use their best 2 pitchers to start. No one else gets that luxury in baseball. The Cubs and Dodgers do. Do you like the Japan series? Do you think they should be playing games in Japan at 5 o'clock in the morning?
I like it. I think it's cool. I know that it's obviously not great for us because we have to wake up at 5 a.m. to watch it, but Japan is the second biggest baseball country besides the U.S. in terms of fandom. People in Japan love baseball, and they have so many guys playing in the league now, obviously with the best player in the league. So I think it's good for the sport.
I hate it.
Of course you do. I'm not shocked by that at all.
Don't need the NFL in Berlin. Don't need the NFL in Mexico City.
This is not comparable.
Aren't they going to South America this year? Is that happening?
Yes.
Where are they playing? Brazil?
They played in Brazil last year.
Did they?
Yeah.
Sounds terrible.
This is not comparable, Hunt, at all.
Why?
Because none of those countries they go play at, the NFL, none of those countries have a presence in the sport, and there's
When's the NBA going over there?
You're not letting me finish my point, okay? Nobody in the other countries care about the NFL. They don't have football. They don't play football in those countries, really. Japan they are baseball crazy, and they have multiple players in the league who are some of the best players in the league already. So it makes sense that they're going to go play games there so the fans can see.
It's March 18th.
Who cares?
We're playing regular season games on March 18th. Cubs weren't ready to play. I can use it as an excuse. They need more spring training. They can't catch a ground ball, can't throw it to first, can't get a hit. They need the full 6 weeks of spring training.
Yes.
4 is not enough.
Okay, so we need more preseason games. Is that what we need?
More preseason games. Okay. We need to spend more time in Mesa because none of those games count.
Yes. Sounds good.
Didn't they win like their first 11 spring training games?
Yeah, they went like 9-0.
That's great. We're about to start 0-2. But I will be up tomorrow at 4:50, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, watching Justin Steele lock in. The pride of Loosedale, Mississippi will be on the bump tomorrow morning, and I'll be watching. And if they lose again, I'll be cranky again in the morning. That's enough of that. Pause for Sports Center. When we come back, let's talk about DBU. Mansour Delane talked about DJ Pickett. You'll want to hear it next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.